At 29 years old, after 5 years of working as a personal assistant to one of the most demanding men in Chicago, I walked into his office with a resignation letter in my trembling hands, ready to finally take control of my own life. What happened next would change everything I thought I knew about my boss, about myself, and about what it really means to be seen by someone. My name is Olivia Chen, and this is the story of how trying to quit my job led me to the place I was always meant to be. That Monday morning started like every other Monday for the past 5 years. My alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., and I lay in bed for exactly 3 minutes staring at the ceiling of my tiny studio apartment, mentally preparing myself for another week of impossible demands and silent criticism. Then I got up, showered, put on one of my 5 rotation of professional blouses, and took the train downtown to the glass tower where Mitchell & Associates occupied the top 3 floors. I had been Daniel Mitchell's personal assistant since I was 24 years old, fresh out of college with a business degree I could not afford, and student loans that would take decades to pay off. The job had been a lifeline at first. The salary was good, the benefits were excellent, and the prestige of working for one of the most successful investment firms in the Midwest looked impressive on paper. But 5 years later, I was exhausted in ways I did not know a person could be exhausted. Daniel Mitchell was not a cruel boss, not in the obvious ways that would make it easy to hate him. He never yelled, never threw things, never made inappropriate comments or crossed physical boundaries. He was simply demanding in a way that consumed every moment of my existence. He expected perfection, and anything less than perfection was met with a silence that somehow felt worse than screaming. I had watched 3 other assistants come and go before me. The longest one lasted 8 months. I had survived 5 years, and I still was not sure if that was something to be proud of or something that indicated a serious problem with my sense of self-worth. The truth was, I had spent so long anticipating Daniel's needs, organizing his life, protecting his schedule, that I had completely lost track of my own. I could not remember the last time I had gone on a date. I could not remember the last time I had spent a full weekend doing something just for me. I could not remember the last time I had felt like a person instead of a very efficient machine. 2 weeks ago, my mother had called me crying. My father had been diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's disease, and she needed help. Not money, although that would come later, but physical presence. She needed me to come home to San Francisco, to be there, to help her navigate the terrifying new reality their lives had become. And in that moment, hearing my mother's voice crack over the phone, I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. I had given everything to a job that would replace me within a week of my departure. I had sacrificed relationships, experiences, my own health and happiness for a man who probably did not even know my middle name. It was time to go home. The resignation letter in my bag had taken me 4 days to write, not because the content was complicated, but because every time I tried to put the words on paper, my hands would shake and my mind would fill with all the reasons I should stay. The salary, the resume builder, the fear of starting over at almost 30 with nothing to show for my 20s except perfect calendar management and an encyclopedic knowledge of one man's preferences. But I had finally done it. 2 paragraphs, professional and courteous, thanking him for the opportunity and explaining that personal circumstances required me to relocate. I did not owe him more than that. I did not owe him anything, really, except the 2 weeks' notice that professional courtesy demanded. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt longer than usual. I watched the numbers climb and tried to steady my breathing. My reflection in the polished metal doors looked pale, determined, terrified. I had rehearsed what I would say 100 times. I would walk into his office, hand him the letter, explain briefly that I was moving to California, offer to help train my replacement, and leave before he could see how much this was costing me. Simple, professional, final. The doors opened onto the executive floor, and I stepped out into the hushed atmosphere of quiet power. Everything up here was designed to intimidate, from the thick carpet that swallowed footsteps to the original artwork on the walls that cost more than I would earn in a decade. I had stopped being intimidated by it years ago. Now it just felt like the backdrop to my own personal prison. Daniel's office was at the end of the hall, behind doors of frosted glass that let in light but not details. His name was etched into a brass plate that was polished every morning by the cleaning staff. I had walked through those doors thousands of times over the past 5 years. Today would be one of the last. I paused outside, clutching my bag with the letter inside, and took one final deep breath. Then I knocked twice, heard his voice say, "Come in," and pushed the door open. He was sitting at his desk, as he always was, surrounded by monitors and documents and the constant hum of a man who never stopped working. Daniel Mitchell was 41 years old, with dark hair that was just starting to show threads of silver at the temples and eyes the color of slate that seemed to see everything and reveal nothing. He was handsome in the way that powerful men often are, with sharp features and an intensity that drew attention whether he wanted it or not. In 5 years, I had never seen him smile, not really smile anyway. I had seen the professional curve of lips that passed for warmth in business settings, the slight upturn that indicated approval of a deal well closed, but never the kind of smile that reached his eyes, that suggested genuine happiness or pleasure. Sometimes I wondered if he was even capable of it. He looked up when I entered, and for a moment something flickered across his face that I could not read. Surprise, maybe, or something else entirely. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual neutral expression. "Olivia, you are early today." I glanced at the clock on his wall. It was 7:45 a.m. I usually arrived at 8 on the dot, 15 minutes before he expected me to start fielding calls and managing his schedule. Today, I had come early because I wanted to get this over with before the day got started, before I lost my nerve. "I need to speak with you," I said, and I was proud of how steady my voice sounded, about something personal. He leaned back in his chair, giving me his full attention in a way that always made me feel simultaneously important and exposed. His eyes moved from my face to my hands, which were gripping my bag too tightly, and I saw him register my nervousness. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I shook my head. "I would rather stand. This will only take a moment." He raised an eyebrow but did not argue. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope containing my resignation letter. My hands were trembling slightly, but I forced myself to walk forward and place it on his desk in front of him. "This is my 2 weeks' notice," I said. "I am resigning from my position, effective 2 weeks from today. I am happy to help train my replacement during that time." For a long moment, he just looked at the envelope without touching it. Then he looked up at me, and for the first time in 5 years, I saw something in his eyes that I did not recognize. It was not anger or disappointment or even surprise. It was something raw and unguarded, something that made my chest tighten in ways I did not understand. "Why?" he asked, and his voice was different too, softer than I had ever heard it. "My father is ill," I explained, keeping my tone professional. "My mother needs help. I am moving back to San Francisco to be with them." He nodded slowly, but he still did not touch the envelope. Instead, he stood up from his desk and walked to the window that overlooked the city, his hands clasped behind his back. From this angle, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the rigid line of his spine. When he spoke again, his voice was so quiet I almost did not hear him. "How long have you worked for me, Olivia?" 5 years, I answered. 5 years and 3 months, actually. 5 years and 3 months, he repeated. "Do you know how many assistants I went through before you?" I heard it was 3. 4, he corrected. 4 in 2 years. And then you came along and everything just worked. He turned to face me, and there was something in his expression that made me take an involuntary step backward. I had never seen Daniel Mitchell look vulnerable before. I did not know he was capable of it. "I have never told you this," he said, "because I did not think it was appropriate. But you are not just my assistant, Olivia. You are the reason this company has run smoothly for half a decade. You anticipate problems before they exist. You manage people I cannot manage. You have saved me from disasters I did not even know were coming. And in 5 years, I have never once thanked you for any of it." I stood there frozen, not knowing what to say. This was so far from the script I had rehearsed that I felt like I had walked into the wrong conversation entirely. "I know I am difficult," he continued. "I know I expect too much and give too little feedback. I know I have taken you for granted in ways that are inexcusable, but I am asking you not to leave." The words hung in the air between us, and I felt something shift in my chest. In 5 years, Daniel Mitchell had never asked me for anything. He had demanded, expected, assumed, but he had never asked. "I have to," I said, finally. "My family needs me." "Your family needs you," he agreed. "And what do you need?" The question caught me off guard. No one had asked me that in so long that I was not sure I remembered how to answer. "I need to not feel like I'm disappearing," I said, before I could stop myself. "I need to remember what my own life feels like instead of just managing yours." He nodded, and something like pain crossed his face. "I have done that to you," he said. "Made you disappear." I did not know how to respond, so I said nothing. He walked back to his desk, but instead of sitting down, he picked up my resignation letter and held it without opening it. "What if there was another way?" he asked. "What if you did not have to choose between your family and your sense of self? I do not understand. What if you worked remotely from San Francisco? Part-time, whatever hours work for your situation. I would pay for your father's medical care, the best specialists in the country, and when things stabilized, we could reassess." I stared at him, certain I had misheard. "That is incredibly generous, but I could not possibly accept." "Why not?" "Because it is too much. Because I do not understand why you would offer something like that for an assistant you could replace in a week." He was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was rough in a way I had never heard. "Because you are not replaceable, Olivia, and because I am not offering this as your boss. I am offering it as someone who has spent 5 years watching you sacrifice everything for a job, knowing I should say something, do something, and being too much of a coward to act. Someone who realized when you walked in here this morning with that envelope that he would rather reorganize his entire company than watch you walk away." The air in the room felt thick, charged with something I did not have words for. I had spent 5 years convincing myself that Daniel Mitchell saw me as a piece of office equipment, a tool that made his life easier. The idea that he had been seeing something else entirely was so disorienting that I could not process it. "What are you saying?" I whispered. He set my resignation letter down on the desk and took a step toward me. "I am saying that I have feelings for you that I have been ignoring for years because I thought acting on them would be inappropriate. I am saying that watching you walk through that door every morning has been the best part of my day, and I did not realize how true that was until you tried to walk out for good. I am saying that I know I have no right to ask you to stay, but I am asking anyway, not as your boss, just as me." My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was not how this conversation was supposed to go. I was supposed to hand him the letter, give my 2 weeks, and leave. I was not supposed to be standing here listening to Daniel Mitchell tell me he had feelings for me, looking at me like I was the answer to a question he had been asking himself for years. "You never said anything," I managed. What was I supposed to say? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I had seen him make thousands of times in business meetings, but never directed at himself. "You worked for me. There was a power imbalance that made any kind of admission feel like pressure. I told myself I was being professional, being appropriate, being respectful. But the truth is, I was being a coward. I watched you date other people and told myself it was fine. I watched you work yourself into exhaustion and told myself it was what you wanted. I have been lying to myself for 5 years and I am done. I thought about all the times I had caught him looking at me when he thought I was not paying attention, all the times his hand had brushed mine when I handed him documents, and I had told myself the electricity I felt was just static. All the times I had stayed late because he was staying late, telling myself it was dedication, when maybe it was something else entirely. I did not come here for this, I said. I came here to quit. I know, and you can still quit. I am not going to pressure you or make your job conditional on anything. I am just telling you the truth because I am running out of time to tell it. The letter is still there. The choice is still yours. I looked at the envelope on his desk, at the door behind me, at the man standing in front of me with more honesty in his eyes than I had seen in 5 years of working for him. My mother was waiting for me in San Francisco. My father was sick. My old life was calling me back with all its familiar complications. But standing here in this office, I realized something I had been refusing to admit even to myself. I did not want to leave. Not really. Not if leaving meant never knowing what might have been. I need time, I said finally, to think about this, to figure out what I want. Take all the time you need, he said. I meant what I said about the remote work and the medical care. That offer stands regardless of anything else. I am not trying to buy your affection. I am trying to show you that I see you, Olivia. Maybe for the first time. I nodded slowly, picked up my resignation letter from his desk, and tucked it back into my bag. You will have my answer in a week, I said. Until then, I need to go to San Francisco and be with my family. Of course, he said. Take the company jet. It's faster, and your father does not have time to waste on commercial airlines. I opened my mouth to refuse, but he held up a hand. Please, let me do this one thing. It is not a bribe. It is just me trying to help someone I care about, someone I should have been helping all along. I left his office that morning with my resignation letter unsigned and my understanding of my life completely upended. The company jet took me to San Francisco that afternoon, and I spent the next week at my parents' house, helping my mother research specialists and treatment options and support groups, holding my father's hand while he processed his diagnosis, and trying to figure out what I actually wanted. At night, I would sit on the back porch of my childhood home and look at the stars and think about Daniel Mitchell. I thought about the man I had known for 5 years, the demanding boss who never smiled, who expected perfection, who made me feel invisible even when I was standing right in front of him. And I thought about the man I had glimpsed in that office, the one who looked at me like I mattered, who admitted his fears and failures, who offered to restructure his entire world just to keep me in it. Were they the same person? Had he always been both, and I just had not been able to see it? My mother found me out there one evening, wrapped in a blanket against the San Francisco fog, staring at nothing in particular. She sat down beside me and did not say anything for a long time. Then she asked, "Who is he?" I looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean?" "Sweetheart, I have known you for 29 years. I know when you are thinking about a man." I laughed, the sound strange and unfamiliar in my throat. It was my boss, I admitted, or I guess he was my boss. Now I do not know what he is. And she said, "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the resignation letter and his unexpected response. I told her about the offer of remote work and medical care. I told her about the confession, the vulnerability, the way he had looked at me like I was someone worth seeing. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she said something that changed how I saw everything. "It sounds to me like this man has been in love with you for a long time," she said gently, "and it sounds like maybe you have been in love with him too, without letting yourself admit it. I wanted to deny it, to explain that what I felt for Daniel Mitchell was complicated by power dynamics and professional boundaries and years of suppressed frustration. But as I opened my mouth to argue, I realized I could not, because somewhere in the process of organizing his life, I had let him become the center of mine. Somewhere in all those late nights and early mornings, I had started caring about him in ways that had nothing to do with my job. Somewhere along the way, I had fallen in love with a man I thought did not even see me, and now I knew that he had been seeing me all along. My father's condition stabilized over the next few days, thanks to an excellent neurologist my mother found through her own research. He would need ongoing treatment and support, but the immediate crisis had passed. The specialist said that with proper care, he could maintain his quality of life for many years to come. It was exactly 1 week after my conversation with Daniel when I called him. He answered on the first ring, like he had been waiting. "Olivia." His voice was carefully neutral, but I could hear something underneath it. Hope, maybe, or fear. "I am coming back," I said, "but not as your assistant." There was a pause. Then he said, "What do you mean?" "I mean I will take the remote work arrangement for now while my family needs me, but I'm not going to work directly for you anymore. It's too complicated, too mixed up with everything else. If we are going to figure out what this is between us, we need to do it on equal footing." Another pause, longer this time, and then he laughed. I had never heard him laugh before, not really, and the sound of it made something warm bloom in my chest. "You are right," he said. "You are absolutely right. I will find another assistant. You can work with the operations team remotely, and when you're ready, when your family is stable and you know what you want, we can talk about what comes next." "What if I already know what I want?" I asked, surprising myself with my own boldness. "Then tell me." "I want to know you," I said, "the real you, not the boss who never smiles. I want to know what makes you laugh and what you are afraid of and why you became who you are. I want to see if the person I glimpsed in your office is the person you actually are, or just someone you showed me because you were desperate to make me stay." "That's fair," he said softly. "I have spent so many years hiding behind the role of demanding executive that I'm not sure I remember how to be anything else, but I want to try. For you, I want to try." We talked for 3 hours that night, longer than we had ever talked in 5 years of working together. He told me about his childhood, about parents who measured love in achievements, and a younger brother who had died in a car accident when Daniel was 17, about the walls he had built to protect himself from loss, and how those walls had become a prison. I told him about my own fears, my sense of disappearing into other people's needs, my complicated relationship with ambition and self-worth. We did not solve anything that night, but we started something. Over the next several months, we built something new. I worked remotely for the company, managing projects and coordinating teams from my parents' house in San Francisco. My father's treatment progressed well, and my mother slowly regained her equilibrium. I helped where I could and stepped back when I needed to, learning for the first time in years how to balance caring for others with caring for myself. And Daniel and I talked every day, sometimes for hours we talked. Video calls where I watched his face transform as he learned to be vulnerable, phone conversations that stretched late into the night, text messages that ranged from silly to profound. I learned that he had a dry sense of humor that emerged only when he felt safe. I learned that he loved old movies and hated modern art, and had once wanted to be a writer before his father's expectations pushed him toward business. I learned that the demanding executive I had known for 5 years was a mask he wore to keep people at a distance, and underneath it was someone lonely and afraid and desperate to be known. And he learned about me too, the real me, not the efficient assistant who anticipated his every need. He learned about my dreams of opening a small business someday, my complicated feelings about success and failure, my habit of stress-eating ice cream at midnight and then feeling guilty about it. He learned that I was funny when I felt comfortable, that I had strong opinions about books and politics, and the proper way to make coffee. He learned that I was more than the role I had played for him, and he seemed to love what he discovered. 3 months after I left Chicago, he flew to San Francisco to see me. He showed up at my parents' door with flowers for my mother and a bottle of scotch for my father, and a nervous expression I had never seen on his face before. He spent the weekend charming my family and showing me a side of himself I had never imagined existed. The side that could be warm and funny and present in a way that the office Daniel never was. On our last night together, we sat on the back porch where I had done so much thinking, and he took my hand in his. "I know this is unconventional," he said. "I know we did everything in the wrong order, but I want you to know that I am serious about this, about us." I looked at our intertwined fingers, at the face of the man who had been my boss for 5 years and was now something else entirely. "3 months ago, I walked into your office to quit," I said, "and you told me no." "Not quite," he smiled, and this time the smile reached his eyes. "I told you that you were staying with me, just not in the way either of us expected." I laughed, and he laughed with me, and sitting there in the San Francisco night with his hand in mine, I felt something I had not felt in years. I felt like myself, not the efficient assistant, not the dutiful daughter, just Olivia, a woman who had finally found someone who saw her exactly as she was and wanted her anyway. 6 months later, I moved back to Chicago, not to work for Daniel, but to be with him. I had found a job at a smaller company, one where I could use the skills I had developed without losing myself in the process. My father was doing well, my mother was managing, and I was finally ready to build a life that was mine. Daniel and I found an apartment together, a beautiful place with big windows and room for both of our complicated histories. He was still learning how to be vulnerable, still struggling sometimes with the habits of distance he had developed over decades. And I was still learning how to take up space, how to ask for what I needed instead of just anticipating what others needed from me. But we were learning together, and that made all the difference. 1 year to the day after I had tried to quit my job, Daniel took me to dinner at a restaurant overlooking the city. I knew something was happening from the way his hands were shaking slightly, from the distracted quality of his conversation, from the way he kept checking his pocket like he was making sure something was still there. After dessert, he reached across the table and took my hand. "1 year ago today, you walked into my office and handed me a resignation letter," he said, and I panicked. I had spent 5 years watching you from behind a wall I had built to keep everyone out, and suddenly you were leaving, and I realized that the wall had not protected me from anything. I had fallen in love with you anyway. I fell in love with your competence and your kindness and the way you made my chaotic life feel manageable. I fell in love with the woman who stayed late because she cared about doing things right, who remembered everyone's birthdays, who never complained even when I was being impossible. And when you tried to leave, I realized I would do anything to make you stay." He stood up from the table and walked around to where I was sitting. Then, to the shock of everyone in the restaurant, and especially to me, he got down on one knee. "Olivia Chen," he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. "You tried to quit your job 1 year ago, and I told you no. I told you that you were staying with me. Now I am asking for real. Will you stay with me? Not as my assistant, not as my employee, as my wife." I looked at the ring in his hand, at the vulnerable hope in his eyes, at the man who had transformed from my demanding boss into the love of my life, and I thought about all the paths that had led me here, all the moments that could have gone differently, all the chances we might have missed. A year ago, I had been ready to leave everything behind. I had been convinced that my life with Daniel Mitchell was just a job, just a role I played, just a temporary stop on the way to somewhere else. I had not understood that sometimes the somewhere else we are looking for is right in front of us, hidden behind walls we have built to protect ourselves from exactly the kind of love we need. "Yes," I said, and my voice broke on the word. "Yes, I will stay with you." He slid the ring onto my finger, and the restaurant erupted in applause, and I laughed and cried and let him pull me into a kiss that felt like coming home. Later that night, lying in our bed in our apartment with the lights of Chicago glowing outside our window, I thought about everything that had happened since that morning when I had walked into his office with a resignation letter in my trembling hands. I thought about my father's diagnosis and my mother's fear. I thought about the company jet to San Francisco and the long nights of conversation that had followed. I thought about learning to see Daniel as a person instead of a boss, and learning to see myself as someone worth seeing. And I thought about the moment when everything had changed, when I had told him I was leaving and he had looked at me with something raw and unguarded and said the words that had rewritten my entire life. No, you are staying with me. But the story does not end there, because life, as I was learning, is never that simple. 3 months after Daniel proposed, I discovered something that would test everything we had built together. It started with a phone call from a number I did not recognize. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. The voice on the other end was female, cold, professional. "Is this Olivia Chen?" "Yes," I said, already sensing that something was wrong. "My name is Victoria Hayes. I am a journalist with the Chicago Tribune. I am calling because I am writing a story about Daniel Mitchell and his company, and I have some questions I think you might be able to answer." My blood went cold. "What kind of questions?" "Questions about financial irregularities," she said, "about potential fraud, and about your role in covering it up." I hung up the phone with shaking hands and sat there for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. Financial irregularities? Fraud? In 5 years of working for Daniel, I had never seen anything that suggested illegal activity. But I had also spent those 5 years not really seeing anything at all, too focused on the daily demands of my job to look at the bigger picture. What if I had missed something? What if the man I had fallen in love with was not who I thought he was? I did not say anything to Daniel that night. I needed time to think, to investigate, to understand what I was dealing with before I made any accusations or decisions. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it began to grow. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention. I looked at financial reports I had never examined before, talked to colleagues I had never really gotten to know, asked questions that had never occurred to me to ask, and what I found made me sick to my stomach. There were irregularities, nothing obvious, nothing that screamed fraud, but patterns that did not quite add up. Money moving to accounts that seemed to have no clear purpose, expenses that were categorized in ways that obscured their true nature, a paper trail that, if you knew what to look for, suggested something was very wrong. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Daniel would never do something like this. The man who had shown me his vulnerabilities, who had asked me to marry him, who had transformed his entire life to be with me, that man was not capable of fraud. But the woman I had been a year ago would have said that man was not capable of vulnerability either. She would have been wrong about that too. I decided to confront him directly. Whatever was happening, I needed to hear it from him. I needed to give him a chance to explain before I let Victoria Hayes or anyone else make accusations I could not take back. I found him in his home office late one evening, working as always, surrounded by the glow of monitors and the quiet hum of a man who had not yet learned to stop. "I need to talk to you," I said from the doorway, "about something serious." He looked up and I saw concern cross his face immediately. "What is wrong?" I walked into the room and closed the door behind me. "A journalist called me," I said, "from the Tribune. She's writing a story about financial irregularities at the company, and she thinks I might have helped cover them up." The color drained from his face. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing." I hung up. "But Daniel, I need to know. Is there something going on that I should know about?" He was quiet for a long moment, and my heart sank, because his silence was not the silence of confusion or outrage. It was the silence of someone figuring out how to explain something complicated. "It is not what you think," he said finally. "I am not committing fraud, Olivia. I am investigating it." "What?" He stood up and crossed the room to where I was standing. He took my hands in his, and I could see the weight of whatever he was carrying in the lines around his eyes. "6 months ago, I discovered that my CFO has been embezzling money from the company," he said. "Millions of dollars over several years. I have been working with federal investigators to build a case against him, but it has to be done carefully. If he finds out he is being investigated, he will destroy the evidence and disappear." I stared at him, trying to reconcile this information with everything I thought I knew. Why did you not tell me? Because the fewer people who know, the safer the investigation, and because I was trying to protect you. If this goes public before we are ready, everyone associated with the company will be under scrutiny. I wanted to keep you as far from this as possible. I pulled my hands away from his, anger and relief warring in my chest. You should have told me. We are supposed to be partners. I trusted you with everything, with my family, with my fears, with my future, and you kept this from me? I know. I am sorry. I thought I was protecting you, but I see now that I was just falling back into old patterns, keeping walls up, controlling information, deciding what you needed to know without asking you what you wanted. He reached out to touch my face, and I let him, even though part of me wanted to pull away. I am still learning how to do this, he said softly, how to be in a real partnership instead of just managing everything alone. I am going to make mistakes, but I promise you, from now on, no more secrets. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The next few months were complicated. The investigation into Daniel's CFO became public just as he had feared, and suddenly the company was under intense scrutiny. Victoria Hayes wrote her story, but instead of exposing Daniel as a fraud, she ended up documenting his courageous effort to clean house and protect his investors. I stood by him through it all, through the depositions and the board meetings and the late nights of crisis management that reminded me of why I had wanted to quit in the first place. But it was different now. I was not his assistant anymore, not the invisible woman anticipating his needs. I was his partner, his equal, the person he turned to when everything else fell apart. And when the investigation concluded and the CFO was arrested and the company emerged stronger than before, I was the one standing beside him at the press conference, my engagement ring glittering under the lights, a symbol of everything we had built together. We got married that summer in a small ceremony on the beach in San Francisco where my parents could attend without difficulty. My father walked me down the aisle, moving slowly but steadily with the help of his cane, and my mother cried happy tears from the front row. Daniel's eyes filled with moisture when he saw me in my wedding dress, and for the first time since I had known him, he did not try to hide it. "I love you," he said as we exchanged rings. "I have loved you for longer than I admitted even to myself, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt it." "I love you too," I said back, "even when you are impossible, especially then." The guests laughed and Daniel laughed with them, and I thought about how far we had come from that morning in his office when I had been ready to walk away from everything. Sometimes the biggest changes in our lives come from the moments we least expect. A phone call about a sick parent, a resignation letter that never gets signed, a boss who looks up and says, "No, you are staying with me." I had walked into Daniel Mitchell's office 5 years ago as a desperate 24-year-old looking for a job. I had tried to walk out as a burned-out 29-year-old looking for an escape, and I had ended up finding something I had not even known I was looking for. A partner, a home, a version of myself that I actually liked. As we drove away from the wedding reception that night, my husband beside me and our whole future stretching out ahead, I thought about all the people who might be watching this story and feeling stuck in their own lives. The assistants who feel invisible, the employees who have given everything to jobs that don't see them, the people who are afraid to make changes because they don't know what comes next. And I wanted them to know something. Sometimes the door you are trying to walk out of is actually the door you are meant to walk through. Sometimes the person you think does not see you has been seeing you all along and just did not know how to say it. Sometimes the job you want to quit is not really what you are running from at all. 2 years after our wedding, I gave birth to our daughter. We named her Grace, after Daniel's mother, who had died before she could meet me. She has his eyes and my stubbornness, and a smile that makes both of us melt every time we see it. I work part-time now, consulting for companies that want to build better workplace cultures. Daniel has learned to delegate, to take time off, to prioritize his family in ways his own parents never did. We are not perfect. Some days we fight about stupid things and have to remember why we chose each other. But we always remember, Every morning, I wake up next to a man who spent 5 years hiding his feelings behind a wall of professional distance. And every morning, I am grateful that I tried to quit my job that day. Because if I had not, I would never have seen who he really was. I would never have discovered who I really was. I would have spent my whole life being invisible, not realizing that I was choosing to be invisible, that I had the power to step into the light whenever I was ready. My name is Olivia Mitchell now. I am 33 years old, and this is the story of how I tried to quit my job and ended up finding everything I did not know I was missing. But more than that, this is a story about seeing and being seen. It is about the walls we build to protect ourselves and the courage it takes to let them down. It is about the difference between existing in someone's life and actually being present, between going through the motions and truly showing up. Daniel and I both spent years hiding. He hid behind his role as the demanding executive, the man who never smiled, the boss who expected perfection and gave nothing back. I hid behind my role as the efficient assistant, the woman who anticipated needs, the employee who made herself invisible so she could avoid the vulnerability of being truly known. And it took a crisis, a resignation letter, a moment of desperate honesty to break through all those walls and find each other. If you are watching this and feeling stuck, feeling invisible, feeling like you have given everything to a job or a relationship or a life that does not see you back, I want you to know that it does not have to stay that way. The walls you have built can come down. The roles you play can change. The life you are living can become something different, something better, something that feels like yours. It will not be easy. Change never is. You will have to be brave in ways that terrify you. You will have to have conversations that make you want to run away. You will have to trust people who might let you down and forgive yourself when you let yourself down. But it is worth it. I promise you it is worth it. Because on the other side of all that fear and uncertainty is the life you actually want, the relationships you actually deserve, the version of yourself that you have been too afraid to become. Daniel used to tell me that the best business decisions come from recognizing opportunities that others miss. He would say that success is not about being smarter or working harder than everyone else. It's about seeing clearly when everyone else is looking in the wrong direction. I think the same is true for life. The best personal decisions come from recognizing what really matters when everyone else, including yourself, is looking in the wrong direction. From seeing the person in front of you, really seeing them instead of just seeing the role they play. From having the courage to say what you feel, even when it is terrifying. From staying when every instinct tells you to run, and running when every instinct tells you to stay. 5 years ago, I walked into a glass tower in downtown Chicago and started a job I thought would be temporary. I met a man I thought I understood and spent half a decade proving myself wrong. I built a life I thought was enough and discovered I had been settling for so much less than I deserved. Then I tried to quit, and everything changed. Not because quitting would have been wrong, but because the act of trying to leave finally forced both of us to see what we had been missing. Me standing in his doorway with my resignation letter, him looking up from his desk with 5 years of unspoken feelings in his eyes. Both of us finally being honest about what we wanted. It's funny how the moments that change everything often look so ordinary from the outside. A woman walking into an office, a man looking up from his work, a conversation that starts with, "I need to speak with you," and ends with a completely different life. But those moments are not ordinary at all. They are the hinges on which our entire existence turns, the before and after points that divide our stories into chapters. And we only recognize them, usually, when we look back and see how different everything became. So here's what I want to leave you with, the thing I wish someone had told me when I was 24 years old and desperate and convinced that my worth was measured by my usefulness to other people. You deserve to be seen. Not for what you can do, not for how efficiently you can manage someone else's life, not for the role you play in other people's stories. You deserve to be seen for who you actually are, in all your complexity and contradiction and beautiful imperfection. And the right people, when you find them, will see you that way. They will look at you and not see an assistant or an employee or a function. They will look at you and see a person, a whole human being with dreams and fears and a heart that deserves to be known. Those are the people worth staying for. Those are the people worth taking risks for. Those are the people who will look up when you try to leave and say the words that change everything. No, you are staying. With me. Find those people. Be that person for someone else, and never, ever let yourself become invisible again. My name is Olivia Mitchell. I am a wife, a mother, a consultant, a daughter, a friend. I am someone who almost walked away from the best thing that ever happened to her because she did not know how to see it yet. And I am proof that it is never too late to start really living. But before I go, let me tell you about something that happened just last month that made me realize how far we have really come. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was in my home office working on a consulting project while Grace napped in the next room. My phone rang, and when I looked at the screen, I saw a number I did not recognize. Normally, I let unknown calls go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Hello? Olivia? The voice was familiar, but I could not place it immediately. This is Maria Santos. I used to work in the accounting department at Mitchell & Associates. You probably do not remember me. But I remembered her. Maria had been a quiet woman in her 50s who always smiled at me in the elevator and once brought me homemade tamales when she found out I was working through lunch. She had left the company about 2 years before I did, and I had always assumed she had simply moved on to another job. I remember you, Maria. How are you? There was a pause on the line, and when she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. I am calling because I saw your story, the one about you and Mr. Mitchell. I read it in a magazine and I cried, not because it was sad, but because it gave me hope. Hope for what? I asked gently. Hope that people can change, that relationships can be different than they seem, that it is not too late for me. And then she told me her story. Maria had left Mitchell & Associates because she was being harassed by her supervisor, not Daniel, but a mill manager who had made her life miserable for years with comments and touches and constant undermining. She had never reported it because she was afraid of losing her job, afraid that no one would believe her, afraid that speaking up would only make things worse. She had left quietly, taken a lesser position at a smaller company, and spent the last 7 years convincing herself that she had made the right choice. But reading about my experience, about how I had found my voice and changed my life, had made her realize something. She had been hiding too. Not behind efficiency like I had, but behind silence, behind the belief that her voice did not matter, that her experience was not important enough to share, that keeping quiet was the same as keeping safe. I want to speak up now, she told me. I know it has been years. I know the man who harassed me has probably moved on, but I want other women to know that they are not alone, that what happened to me happens to so many people, and it is not okay. And I wanted to thank you, Olivia, for showing me that it is possible to stop hiding. I sat there in my office with tears streaming down my face, listening to this woman I barely knew pour out years of pain and fear and suppressed anger. And I thought about all the ways we make ourselves invisible, all the different shapes that hiding can take, all the people walking around every day carrying burdens they think they have to carry alone. You are so brave, Maria, I told her when she finished, and you are not alone. Whatever you decide to do next, I am here. I will help however I can. She did speak up, not publicly, not in a way that put her name in headlines, but in a way that mattered. She contacted an advocacy organization that helped her document her experience and connected her with other women who had similar stories. Together, they created a support group for people who had experienced workplace harassment and were struggling to move forward, Maria leads that group now. She told me recently that helping others has finally helped her stop blaming herself for what happened, that speaking her truth, even years later, even when it felt too late, had set her free in ways she never imagined possible. And she said something else that has stayed with me. She said that my story, the story of trying to quit my job and finding love instead, had shown her that there are always second chances, that the walls we build can always come down, that it is never too late to become who we were meant to be. I tell you this because I think it is important to understand that our stories do not just belong to us. They ripple outward in ways we cannot predict, touching people we will never meet, changing lives we will never know about. When I walked into Daniel's office 5 years ago with that resignation letter, I had no idea that my choice to stay would eventually inspire a woman I barely knew to finally speak her truth. I had no idea that our love story would become a catalyst for other people's healing. But that is how it works, I think. We take our small, terrifying steps toward honesty and authenticity, and somehow those steps create paths for other people to follow. We share our struggles and our victories, and somehow that sharing gives others permission to struggle and triumph too. We stop hiding, and somehow that courage is contagious. Daniel and I talk about this sometimes, late at night when Grace is asleep and the house is quiet. We talk about all the years we spend hiding from each other and from ourselves, and all the time we wasted being afraid. We talk about how different things might have been if we had been brave sooner, if we had seen each other clearly from the beginning. But we also talk about how maybe it had to happen this way. Maybe we needed those 5 years of distance and silence to become the people who were capable of really loving each other. Maybe the hiding was not wasted time, but necessary preparation. Maybe we had to learn who we were alone before we could figure out who we wanted to be together. I do not know if that is true. I do not know if there is a grand plan or if things just happen and we make meaning out of them afterward. But I do know that I am grateful for all of it, even the hard parts, even the years of feeling invisible, even the fear and the doubt and the resignation letter that never got signed. Because all of those things led me here, to this life, to this man, to this daughter who looks at me like I am the center of the universe and makes me want to be worthy of that trust, to this version of myself that I actually like, that I am actually proud of, that feels like the person I was always supposed to become. If I could go back and talk to the 24-year-old version of myself, the one who walked into Mitchell & Associates for the first time with her stomach in knots and her future uncertain, what would I tell her? I would tell her that the job she is starting is going to be harder than she expects, that the boss she is about to meet is going to demand things she did not know she was capable of giving, that she is going to spend years feeling like a ghost in her own life, present but not seen, working but not living. But I would also tell her that it is going to be worth it, that the difficulty is preparing her for something she cannot imagine yet, that the man who seems so cold and demanding is carrying his own wounds and building his own walls, and one day those walls are going to come down. I would tell her to pay attention to the moments that feel like nothing, the late nights in the office when she catches him looking at her with something unreadable in his eyes, the morning coffees she brings him without being asked, the way her heart speeds up when he walks into a room, which she tells herself is just anxiety, but might be something else entirely. I would tell her that love does not always look like what we expect, that sometimes it looks like 5 years of silence and distance, that sometimes it looks like a resignation letter and a desperate confession, that sometimes the person we are meant to be with is right in front of us, hiding behind the same walls we are hiding behind ourselves. And I would tell her to trust herself, to believe that she is worth seeing, worth knowing, worth loving, to know that her invisibility is a choice, not a destiny, and that one day she will have the courage to step into the light. I think she would be scared to hear all of this. I think she would doubt that any of it was possible for someone like her, but I also think she would hold on to it somewhere deep inside, like a seed waiting for the right conditions to grow. And eventually, that seed would become this life, this story, this moment right now where I am sharing everything I have learned with people who might need to hear it. We all have seeds like that inside us, I think. dreams and hopes and possibilities that are waiting for the right moment to bloom. Sometimes those moments come easily, naturally, like spring after winter, but sometimes we have to create them ourselves. Sometimes we have to walk into an office with a resignation letter in our hands and be brave enough to see what happens next. I did not know I was creating a moment when I tried to quit my job 5 years ago. I thought I was ending something, closing a chapter, walking away. But really, I was opening a door. I was giving both of us permission to finally be honest. I was creating the conditions for something new to grow. And now, here I am, on the other side of all that fear and uncertainty, with a life I love and a story worth telling.
It is not a perfect life. Daniel still works too much sometimes. I still struggle with feeling like I need to prove my worth. We still have arguments about money and parenting and whose turn it is to do the dishes. But it is a real life, a full life, a life where I am seen and known and loved for exactly who I am. And that is everything I ever wanted, even when I did not know how to want it. So if you are out there feeling invisible, feeling stuck, feeling like you are watching your life happen instead of actually living it, I want you to know that change is possible. I want you to know that the walls can come down. I want you to know that the person you are waiting for might be closer than you think, hiding behind their own walls, waiting for permission to be real. Be brave enough to give them that permission. Be brave enough to give yourself that permission. Write the resignation letter. Have the difficult conversation. Say the things you have been afraid to say, and see what happens next. Because sometimes, when you try to walk away, life has a way of asking you to stay. Sometimes the end of one story is really the beginning of another, and sometimes the words that change everything are the simplest ones of all. No, you are staying. With me. There is one more thing I want to share with you before I go. It is something that happened on our 3rd wedding anniversary, something that made me understand just how much Daniel had truly changed. We were at home that evening. Grace was with my parents for the night, and Daniel had promised me a quiet dinner, just the two of us. He had been acting strange all day, distracted and nervous in a way that reminded me of the night he proposed. I kept asking him what was wrong, and he kept saying, "Nothing, everything is fine," in a way that made it clear everything was not fine. When we sat down to dinner, he put an envelope on the table between us. It was thick, stuffed with papers, and my first thought was that something bad had happened, a legal issue maybe, or some problem with the company that he had been afraid to tell me about. "Open it," he said. So I did. Inside was a stack of documents, and it took me a moment to understand what I was looking at. They were sale papers, transfer agreements, legal filings that showed he had sold his majority stake in Mitchell & Associates to his board of directors. "I don't understand," I said, looking up at him with confusion. "I thought the company was your whole life." "It was," he agreed. "For a very long time, it was. But that was before I understood what life could actually be. Before you, before Grace, before I realized that building something successful means nothing if you lose yourself in the process." He reached across the table and took my hand. "I've been thinking about this for a long time," he said, "about what I want our life to look like, about what kind of father I want to be, about the man I want to become. And I realized that I cannot be that man and also be the person who runs Mitchell & Associates. The company requires everything. It always has. And I don't want to give everything to it anymore. I want to give everything to you, to us, to this family we are building." I sat there in stunned silence, trying to process what he was telling me. The Daniel Mitchell I had met 5 years ago would never have done this. That man had been defined by his work, consumed by his need to succeed, incapable of imagining a life that did not revolve around the company that bore his name. But the Daniel Mitchell sitting across from me now was someone different, someone who had learned that success is not measured by revenue or market share or the number of hours you log at your desk. Someone who understood that the most important investments we make are in the people we love. "What are you going to do?" I finally managed to ask. "I don't know yet," he admitted, and he was smiling, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. "Maybe I will write that novel I always talked about. Maybe I will coach Grace's soccer team when she's old enough. Maybe I will just be present, really present, in a way I have never allowed myself to be before." He squeezed my hand. "I spent 41 years building walls and accumulating things," he said. "Now I want to spend the rest of my life tearing walls down and accumulating moments with you, with our daughter, with whatever comes next." I started crying then, and he came around the table to hold me, and we stood there in our kitchen for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, both of us finally understanding what it means to choose love over everything else. That was 6 months ago. Daniel hasn't written that novel yet, but he has started a journal, filling page after page with observations and ideas and reflections on his life. He drops Grace off at preschool every morning and picks her up every afternoon, and the teachers tell me he's the most involved parent they've ever seen. He takes long walks and reads books for pleasure and has learned to cook 3 different pasta dishes that he makes for us on rotating Sundays. He's happy.